Mr. Walton, did you make contact with aliens? Were you taken to another planet, to a mothership? How did they communicate with... Can you tell me what they look like? Can you tell me how many of them there were? Were you given food? Injections? It's important the entire world learns of your experience.
That's enough!
The teachers are alive. They're not books. They are the very living essences of nature itself.
Unbelievably powerful supercomputer that's running our reality, and we don't have a clue as to how to operate it.
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world.
For the seeker.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-Dress.
Nice to be in orbit.
Broadcasting from the Forest Tower studio in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. I'm Joe Roop, and this is Lighting the Void. You can check out our website at lightingthevoid.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Follow us on social media. Like, subscribe, and share. Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. It is November the 14th, and the night is cold here and breezy here in the natural state, and the moon is waning in Libra for all of you tropical followers out there. Fire up your chakras, sync both hemispheres of your brain together, and shoot your magical beam of light through your third eye tonight with us as we peer into the void, into the veil between spirituality and science on this wonderful night. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, Marty Leeds joins us, a very informative and intelligent guy who decodes the universe through ancient wisdom using numerology and gematria and more. And I told you guys there's hidden messages in this stuff, right? Now, this is a live show broadcasted on thefringe.fm and can be heard on lightingthevoid.com. It can also be heard on TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Spreaker, iTunes Radio, and more. Jeff is showing me his phone's not working, yet I'm looking at it, and I know it's working on Spreaker. So your app must be sucking up right now, brother. Hey, thanks for joining the chat room. Ramon, David, Rose, it's good to see you guys. Thanks for coming out. The TalkStream Live number is 701-719-3971. If you don't have internet, you can call that number if someone's limiting your data. No problem there. Now, you can check out all the show archives for free on any podcast and aggregator app, such as Apple, iTunes Podcast, Google Play, and more. And another fun fact about Lighting the Void, you can listen to this show on Alexa devices with a Spreaker. Check out the players on Facebook as well, on the Fringe.fm Facebook and on Lighting the Void Facebook. Follow us over there. And there's little listen tabs up there on the left. Now, I don't know what's going on with Android phones, but apparently the Spreaker app's not working. But that's okay. That's why we're on 9 or 10 different streams right now. And I know we're on the Fringe.fm because I'm monitoring it. So here's the thing. You might have to do, if you're experiencing that, you might have to clear your cache on that app, Jeff.
Already did.
But it's on there, or else I wouldn't be seeing these cats chatting to me in the chat room. It's always something. Every night at the internet, there's always some person saying, mine's not working. Meanwhile, everybody else's stuff works. And it throws you totally off guard. But that's the internet for you. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it, right? I had some people ask me today about the video that I put up with Travis Walton's book, and I'm not selling his book. What I'm trying to explain is that when authors, they get on the internet and they go to sell their books, and then other people on Amazon go and resell their books. For instance, if you look up Travis Walton's Fire in the Sky book, which is, if you aren't familiar with it, is probably the most famous case about ufology known to man, right? If you don't check that out, you need to. But anyways, if you go on Amazon, someone's selling that book for like $120, $130 when you can go to his website and get his inscription and autograph and pay $29.95 plus shipping. And now this is happening to a lot of different authors. So that was the whole point of the book, you know. Apparently, some people's, I don't know what's going on because Dan's saying his app's not working either on Spreaker. That's weird, isn't it? Don't know.
Very weird.
I have no idea what's going on there. I tell you what, give me just a moment and I'm going to check this out because that's weird. I know. Are you guys listening on the computer? Those in the chat room, if you can, let me know how you're listening to the show. Make sure everything's titled right, too, because I'm using their web console. But if you're listening on the fringe.fm, hello, I love you guys. The call-in number for tonight is 501-777-5631. Apparently Spreaker's app is down because these people are listening on the computer.
Okay, I see.
So that's weird.
Well, I just thought I'd let you know just in case you was like broadcasting.
You know what I think that is? You know when I was doing the interview with Leo Zagami, right?
Right.
The second after the break, I heard this crazy buffering noise. It was like a Pac-Man type noise, you know, and I was like, what the hell was that? It shut down my audio and everything. I couldn't do anything. I had to restart the feed. I've noticed on other shows, like Jimmy Church's show, other people's show, here lately, all of the Spreaker feeds have been going down. And, you know, they're partnering with Blog Talk Radio.
Didn't know that.
I bet that's what's going on, man. They're doing something behind the scenes that's really... I was just talking to Marty before the show about how we always have problems with the internet. YouTube's censoring people now. Skype's messing up. They're check it now, Jeff, and see if it's on the right one. All right, so we're on the right one now. Crazy. That's insane. Let me get into the news real quick while we're doing this. There was something else. Oh, the Friends.fm application is actually on iTunes or Apple right now. So the app is, yes, Kat, it's late because the feed started on Kurt's feed, not mine. But, yeah, the Friends.fm app is on Apple, right? And it's not on Google Play yet. You haven't seen it pop up there yet?
I haven't even looked.
So the Friends.fm app should be on Google Play by the end of the week. That way you guys can have, God, there's so many ways to listen to the station now. It's I don't think I need to do anything else. I mean, you got a call-in number. We're on like 7 or 9 different streams. The Friends.fm's got its own app. There's nothing else that we need to do, right? What else do we need to do? Get an AM, FM antenna, shortwave antenna?
Shortwave.
Yeah, shortwave radio. That's what we need to do.
There you go.
That's what Jeff's me and Jeff's been talking about. All right, let's go on with the Gilson Report. We got to move on here. Skip all this crazy stuff. Now, here's the thing. We've been talking about this for a while, but I got to keep talking about it. The first digital pill approved is worrying people, right? First digital pill approved to worries about biomedical. Big Brother. Big Brother's watching. Now they have a digital pill. For the first time, the Food and Drug Administration has approved a digital pill, a medication embedded with a sensor that can tell doctors whether or not you have been taking your medicine as they're telling you to. Now, this was announced late Monday, and marks a significant advance in the growing field of digital devices designed to monitor medicine taking and to address the expensive, long-standing problem that millions of patients do not take drugs as prescribed. Now, people are estimating that this so-called non-adherence or non-compliance, and we're going to talk about compliance in just a second, to medication costs about $100 billion a year, much of it because patients get sicker and need additional treatment. It probably has to do with people having withdrawals from opiates. And I was listening to the End of Days show with Michael Deacon the other day, and everybody's been wondering about where John Lear has been, right? But what happened was the doctors took him off pills, and he went into what he calls non-volunteered opiate withdrawal. And he was having to get kratom powder and stuff. So this is like a real problem. And it says right here, when patients don't adhere to lifestyle or medications that are prescribed for them, they are really substantive, or well, let's just say big consequences that are bad for the patient and very costly. Now, this is according to Dr. William Schrank, Chief Medical Officer of the Health Plan Division at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. Now, I don't know if this is a good thing. To me, you know, a digital device, a pill that you take, is it something that you swallow? It doesn't say in the article. How do they put this in your body?
You know, that's a good idea.
It better not be an implant.
Suppository.
Well, I mean, you're so funny, Jeff. By the way, that's Jeff Gilson in the shack with me here.
Hey, y'all.
He does the news, but you can't force someone to take medication. And the doctors, you know, how many times have you taken meds that messed you up, Jeff?
Never.
You've never taken a pill that messed you up? Any kind of medication or treatment that wasn't right for you?
Well, no treatment.
You are really standing up to that mic.
I took something one time.
What is it? What did you take?
Well, I can't say.
Well, just tell us, man.
I really don't know what it was, but it didn't work like it was supposed to.
What was it supposed to do?
It was supposed to slow you down.
Slow you down.
But it worked opposite.
Why are you being like all codex on me right now? What the hell are you talking about?
I'm just saying, you know, when you're young, you do stupid things, right?
Yeah.
Well, I took something that I shouldn't have.
I got you. Okay. See? So you took a downer is what you're saying.
Yeah, but it wasn't a downer. I thought my heart was going to explode. That's the one time I've took a medication.
I can't believe that, Jeff. Not you. Well, anyways, I don't know. If you guys know about this, you can send me an email at contact@lightingthevoid.com. It doesn't say anywhere a digital pill. I mean, if you swallow a pill, you're going to digest it. So I'm wondering how they're going to do this, unless I'm just missing something here. But what I'm getting at is it's just more stuff that they're forcing down your throat. I think you should be able to stop taking your medications whenever you want and not have to worry about the consequences of it, you know?
That's right.
This is another infringement on our freedoms, folks.
Could be.
Anyways, moving on. Killer robots. That's right. We're still going down this road with you, but killer robots are almost a reality and need to be banned, warns leading AI scientist. The technology to create killer robots is already here and needs to be banned. A leading artificial intelligence scientist has warned Stuart Russell, a professor of computer science at Berkeley University, California, said that allowing machines to choose to kill humans would be devastating for world peace and security. You think? The professor, who has worked in the field of artificial intelligence for more than 35 years, also warned that the window to ban lethal robots is closing fast. Now, Elon Musk has been telling us about this. They actually went to the UN, the United Nations, about this, trying to warn people about this. Now, his warning comes as campaigners are making the case at the United Nations, see, I told you, this week for a global prohibition on lethal autonomous weapon systems. This is real. It's not just something I'm trying to sensationalize you with. This is really happening. Yesterday, the pressure group, the campaign to stop killer robots, showed a short film it produced to a meeting of countries participating in the Convention on Conventional Weapons, which painted a dystopian scenario based on existing technologies. I need you to find me that video, Jeff, if you can. The video entitled Slaughterbots.
I got it.
You got Slaughterbots?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Well, put it on the Facebook page,
okay,
the Lighting the Void Facebook page. Now, this starts with an enthusiastic CEO on stage unveiling a new product to an excited crowd. Instead of a new smartphone of consumer tech innovation, he reveals a miniaturized drone that uses facial recognition to identify its target before administering a small yet lethal explosive blast to the skull. Now, this nameless CEO, I wonder why they don't want to put his name on there. A $25 million order now buys this, enough to kill half a city, the bad half. That's what he says. That's according to him. Now, nuclear is obsolete. Take out our entire enemy virtually risk-free is what he's selling these people. That's what he's saying. Just characterize him, your target, release the swarm, and the rest is easy. However, this film does show the weapons quickly falling into the hands of terrorists who use them to slaughter politicians and a classroom full of students. Now, Professor Russell said the short film is more than just speculation. It shows the results of integrating and miniaturizing technologies that we already have. Now, this article goes on and on and on, but even Jody Williams, who's a 1997 Nobel Peace laureate and co-founder of the campaign, said that we need to avoid a future where machines select and attack targets without human intervention. Countries must draw the line against unchecked autonomous weapons. In July, the entrepreneur behind companies such as Tesla and SpaceX described artificial intelligence as the biggest risk we face as a civilization. Now, this is actually a huge controversial subject in the scientific community. You can even get on YouTube and check out that some people are actually pushing this. They're pushing artificial intelligence. They're saying it's a good thing. What side of the fence are you on that? I don't think it's a good thing.
No, definitely not.
There's nothing good about this. And may I remind you, as we go into the intermission here before we bring on our guest, why it's not a good thing. And I want to play a little clip, and we're going to go into the breaks. All right? So when we come back, are there codes in the Bible, ancient secret codes that reveal higher truths we may not be aware of? When we come back, Marty Leeds joins us to discuss this and gives us a little proof of the existence of the wonders of numbers and the universe. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.
Please put down your weapon. You have 20 seconds to comply.
I think you'd better do what he says, Mr. Kenny.
You now have 15 seconds to comply. You are in direct violation of Penal Code 113, Section 9. You now have 5 seconds to comply. 4, 3, 2, 1. I am now authorized to use physical force.
Pull back the blinds and uncover the truth. This is Lighting the Void Radio.
KTLK Digital Broadcasting. We rock the paranormal talk.
Greetings, I'm Space Boy. I started writing music at an early age, inspired by such synth stylings of the Pet Shop Boys, Erasure, Kraftwerk, Art of Noise, and 8-Bit. I have crafted my work into a hybrid of synth pop with modern electronica rock music of today, with pounding beats, high-energy arpeggios, soothing orchestral moods, and rock and roll. Space Boy will surely be a part of anyone's music collection. So head on over to spaceboymusic.com and get you some cool stuff.
The Fringe FM presents proud sponsor, Ancient Life Oil. The real oil. CBD is truly Ancient Life Oil from the source. Here's some exciting news. This oil has no psychoactive effects, and it's legal in 50 states. I take it myself, and it's truly changing my life in phenomenal ways. Insomnia? Not a problem for me. And inflammation? Well, this is just my experience. Be proactive and do your own research. Go get it yourself at ancientlifeoil.com. When you're healthy, happiness comes easy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. It's totally organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut MCT oil. Do yourself a favor and go to ancientlifeoil.com. Again, that's ancientlifeoil.com.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio with Joseph Roop. Stay up to date right now, lightingthevoid.com.
Hi, this is Ryan Gable, host of the Secret Teachings radio show. If you are interested in ancient knowledge and hidden mysteries, as well as a unique and balanced perspective on conspiracies, symbols, and the occult, then join me every Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Fringe.
Come own the night with us. Hi there, this is Dave Scott, host of Spaced Out Radio. Every Monday through Friday, right here on KTLK, The Fringe FM, I'm going to lead you down a path of mystery, intrigue, and suspense. So whether you've seen a UFO, had a run-in with Bigfoot or Dogman, or had ghosts running around your house, this is the place to be. Spaced Out Radio, right here on KTLK.
This is Lighting the Void Radio with your host, Joseph Roop. It's the show about truth-seeking and freeing the spirit, shattering your limited beliefs, revealing hidden truths, and much, much more.
I'm going to do a little rip-off of Art Bell here. the rip-off Art Bell thunderclap. I love it, man. We're back. This is Joe Roop from Lighting the Void. If you're just joining us, thank you for joining us. And I wanted to play that clip of that RoboCop clip simply because to let you know that danger is real. Just look into it yourself, you know. All right, let's welcome our guest. Marty Leeds is the author of several books, including the Pi and the English Alphabet series, and is currently at work on a massive anthology. He is the host of his own podcast, the Marty Leeds Magical Radio Hour, available on iTunes, and has an ongoing lecture and video series available on youtube.com/Marty Leeds 33. He has been a guest on many popular podcasts and has lectured throughout the States and Canada. He was also on the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable, if you guys want to check that out. Marty is a musician and has 4 records, actually. Opus Medico Musica, The Mountain, Songs for Puddles, and the recently released this film has not yet been rated. I did not know that. Marty currently resides in Eugene, Oregon. You can check out his website at MartyLeeds33.com, which is a really cool website. It's got like a gematria calculator on there and some pretty cool information. How you doing, Marty?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm sorry about the crazy mess up there at the beginning. I don't know what goes on. I think I drank like an entire cup of coffee and just, you know how that happens. And you just get real fidgety and you start screwing everything up.
This is the internet, man. That's the norm.
Marty, man, I'm going to be honest with you. I've been following your work for quite a long time, and Rose put in the chat room that that there was a woman named Marty Leeds who is the mother of the Jersey Devil. Now, you're not in relation to the Leeds, are you?
No relation there. No, not to the devil or Mother Leeds or any of that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, good. I was just checking, but it wouldn't matter. Anyways, I've got crazy relatives. That don't mean I'm crazy. At least I don't
I've got crazy relatives. Don't get me wrong.
But as I was saying, I've been following your work since you first came online, because I was studying the esoteric and things, and started getting into the hidden codes in the at first it was just the King James Bible, and I found a few hidden codes in there, but not near the stuff that you found. Let me ask you this, man. Have you always been like a math major, or what got you into all this?
No, terrible at math, actually.
Really?
And if I remember correctly, when I was, I went to the University of Platteville for a year, and then I did a semester up at UW-Stevens Point. And if I remember correctly, I got like a C in college algebra. So I really wasn't a math guy at all.
Wow, I got better than that, and I'm a dummy. So
yeah, I mean, and the math, most of the math that I do is basic arithmetical stuff. It's just add, subtract, multiply, and divide, square root some stuff, square some stuff, but basic geometry, basic mathematics. I think that is the one reason that I don't lose a lot of people when they come to visit Marty Leeds or whatever, is that I do, there's a lot of math, and that isn't much of a draw to people. That kind of, turns people off. But because it's not very complex, I think it's kind of easy for people to follow along most of the time.
Ah, okay. Well, when I found your work, I was fascinated actually with, I think I even remember what I searched on YouTube, because that's where you started publishing your material. That's where you still publish your materials, on YouTube. And I think I was searching because I'm fascinated with all of the equivalents to the number 9 in the Bible, which I'm a Hermetic Kabbalist, so I look at number 9 as the sphere of the dream world, the trapped, our trapped consciousness or whatever. It was something like that. And your videos came up, and you started like revealing all kinds of codes in the Bible and different things that it was showing us. What I'm wondering is this have to do with some person or persons that made sure it turned out this way, or is this something higher that's doing that, do you think?
I've gotten this question a lot, and the answer that I've really come to is it's a little of both. Meaning that the people that were putting together these things, a lot of people have said it's like, okay, it's like Francis Bacon, or that did this, or it was William Shakespeare. And who was William Shakespeare? Oh, it was
Francis
there probably Bacon. Was, yeah, exactly. And then there's that whole thing. I mean, a lot of people know about that. The idea that William Shakespeare wasn't even William Shakespeare, that this was probably like a guild of writers or something that was putting together under the pseudonym Shakespeare. There's all of that whole thing. That's really, really speculative. There's a big damn question mark when it comes to a lot of that stuff, because we don't have objective historical records on that stuff. So at this point, we're looking back a couple hundred, 400 years, whatever it's been now, and trying to pick up the pieces. And we really can't do that. So, we're the people that were putting together. You can even see in the King James Version that there are different writers. When you read the Bible, you can tell that there are different writers there. And people have discussed this for a long time, even biblical scholars, that it seems like there's different writers. So to me, when you talk about the people that were putting together the Bible, from what I gather and from what I see, I mean, these people were absolute geniuses, man. I mean, you're talking – obviously theologians, but –
yeah, that's what perplexes me, Marty, is how can they tell such a perfect story? Just a perfect story, and still have these codes in it. I'm not sure a human could do that. Not as good as this is put together.
Well, that's the thing, is that a few things there. Number one, I think that in general, myself included, and everyone I'm surrounded with, we've all been really, really dumbed down. Our education system has really done a number on us. So, no pun intended.
That's right.
Has done a number on us. And so I think that, I don't want to say this, but like back in the day, you had 12-year-olds learning Hebrew and Latin and Greek, And now there's people that can barely even speak English. Once again, myself included sometimes. So, but talk about the people that were putting this together. I mean, I think that they were extremely intelligent. I mean, they were polyglots for sure. Linguists, polymaths, theologians, alchemists, anatomists, architects and engineers, all of that stuff, man. And so when these people were putting it together so meticulously and literally letter to letter, there's a level of intention there, knowable intention, I guess you could say. And then there's a level of, man, when you get working with this stuff and things just flow out of you. And that's really what they talk about, like when you have the Holy Spirit within you and you're just doing something and you're not even really paying attention to what you're doing. You're just sort of letting it flow out of you kind of thing. I think there's a lot to that. But what is what and which is which is hard to say.
Right.
So.
I think, and it's such a hard thing because I've tried to talk about Kabbalah on this show. I've tried to talk about numerology on the show, and it doesn't process over the radio, on the entertainment factor. It doesn't process very well. But when you get on YouTube, then you start to really see what's going on. There's some big stuff here. Now, out of all of the things that you have decoded, what do you think is the coolest or the most important, I guess, hidden message in this text, in the Bible?
Well, I think that I can only tell you what I've got out of it, really, is the personal experience kind of thing. And I think that there is an organic religious process, or there is essentially an organic religion that has been placed within the natural world, if you will, that man can come to understand. And that is your basis, the basis of all science, really, is what is man unveiling what that story is. And what that story is what you're doing here and what Earth is for and where you're going and why you're here and what you came here to do and where you came from. I think the true science, the holy sciences, the esoteric sciences actually point to that fundamental in creation. So, and that is a story of really, it's a death and resurrection story. It's a redemption story, a redemption of the soul, and that's what the Bible tells you it is anyway. When we talk about, did these people know this stuff or did it flow through them? Well, according to their own written word, some of this stuff actually flowed through them, if you will, because it's they're praising God,
is
right?
What you're saying, like it was channeled from a higher intelligence, maybe. Yeah,
I hate to use the word channel because it always brings up this sort of like woo woo kind of baggage stuff. But yes, exactly. Like this stuff is just coming out of them. There's a TED Talks. I forget the woman's name, but she wrote "Eat, Pray, Love." Elizabeth Gilbert is the name, and she did this TED Talks, and it was really interesting because she was saying that when like Mexican dancers, they would dance, and somebody would say "Allah" or "Ole, ole, ole," right when they got really into their dance, and ole is actually it's a reference to God. It's a linguistic or etymological link to the name of God. It's Allah. So when they're saying ole, 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 really what they're saying is God, God, God. So they're at that point where they're just in the moment. They're in the zone so much that they're channeling, they're bringing forward this sort of thing that's within everybody, and when you see it and you see it happening, you're like, yes, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. And a lot of times when people, especially artists, get into that space, they're not thinking about the next step they're going to make if they're a dancer. They're not thinking about the next chord they're going to play if they're a guitar player. They're not thinking about the next beat they're going to make if they're a drummer. They're just doing, and they know, but they still know exactly what they're doing. And as a musician, I've been to that place many, many times,
Yeah, I didn't know you were a musician. I know when I was looking on your YouTube channel, I saw the guitars and stuff, man, but I got to check out your work. I had no idea that you're into music, which goes along with numbers and stuff pretty well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now there is a. Do you understand what I mean by how hard it is to portray to an audience when we talk about numerology and hidden codes? Because we kind of got to paint a picture a little bit for them. And I'm thinking that whoever, you, the listener out there, I don't know if you're in your car or in front of your computer or anything like that, but could you just give us an example of maybe one of your discoveries on this? Because I know you've got like 1,000. To give them an idea of what we're talking about.
Okay, well, yeah, the first problem with talking about a lot of this stuff is that it's, I don't want to say it's hard to find people that are into this, but it is a very skewed subject when it really comes down to what I mean in the general arc of esotericism, mysticism, this sort of thing, especially when it comes to religions, because most of the organized religions poo-poo this stuff. It's like, this is devil worship kind of stuff. And then so what is sort of attractive to some for some people to the work that I do is that it's like you're just like, okay, you're dealing with these commonalities, these fundamentals within mysticism and esoterica, and you're finding them decoded number by number, letter to letter within the Holy Bible. And so that is I think a different perspective than a lot of people get when they so a lot of people just don't know about this stuff, and that's really the first problem you have when you're trying to explain this stuff. But I mean, I think one of the major finds is the cipher for the alphabet in and of itself, and that's a 7-fold cipher. That's really sort of the crux of the work that I do, and that is a pretty major discovery. And that's so for those people that don't know this, basically what I've done is found a mathematical cipher for cryptogram, you could call it, for the English alphabet, which this is basically just putting numbers to letters, just like they do in isosophy and in Kabbalah and in gematria and other languages. That goes for Greek, that goes for Hebrew, that goes for Arabic, etc. So the cipher is for the English language, and I actually got it from the first time I ever even put it together was from the Holy Bible, was God doing his work in 6 days and resting on the 7th. And so all of that a lot of the work stems from that. So, and that is literally in the opening pages of Genesis, the first page of the book.
Well, for those that are wondering, what the Masons use ciphers, and a lot of the mystery schools, which is funny to me that you're talking about ciphers, because even in the Golden Dawn, they base their whole magical teachings on what's called the cipher manuscript. But could you kind of tell the listener, maybe explain what a cipher is? It might be difficult, actually. But if you could try.
Well, I mean, it's, when you look at a lot of these other major cultures, right, there was a sacredness to their alphabets, right? So, I mean, every word that they were speaking had this potency to it and had this sort of weight to it. And they would, they treated language, at least as far as I can tell, they treated language a lot more differently than we do. We're very sort of flippant with language, When you look at some of these older cultures, then you see that they had numbers to letters to their respective alphabets. So when you talk about, most people know it for Hebrew. It's like, okay, I'm going to read a line of Hebrew. There's particular numbers that go to those particular letters. So I put those numbers to the letters, and then I get a value, and then that value is, the value for the word. And so we have this, I mean, this is and this isn't woo-woo stuff. This isn't stuff that's like, there's professors that talk about this, that have written about this extensively. There's just straight academic books that have talked about the history of numbers and the history of language and stuff like that have chapters upon chapters of gematria and how this was used in other cultures, right? Mm-hmm. But it's been this sort of lost art in our time. And so, my whole thing was, try to find something for English, and that's, so basically that's what it is. That's what a cipher is. It's putting the numbers to letters of words to show that words have particular values, and that those values are actually this, when you put them together, it makes this huge sort of integrated network. That language isn't just some ho-hum, throw together, cobbled together frickin' mess, that this was done with design, it was done with intention, it was done whoever crafted the English language and put it together were just crazy brilliant people, crazy brilliant. So much so that they could encode this stuff into our language and pass it on, that this would maintain for 400 years that we're talking about it now.
Yeah, even when I talk about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth a lot, which was channeled material, and I understand why you don't want to talk, why you don't like that word channeled. I totally get that. And it was, how when you hear something when you hear the truth, even though it may be a smaller or bigger form of the truth, but it's true when you hear it, right? Well, that one time when I was reading it, that I had that UFO experience, the part that I wasn't actually reading it, I was listening to it, as a matter of fact. But the part where he was talking about the magical, or the gods, or I guess he called them the 7, right? And he started yelling out numbers. Like the numbers themselves were archaic, that had powers, you know. And that's when I had one of the only UFO experiences in my life when I was listening to that. So I'm not trying to say that these numbers go back to aliens, but maybe they do. Man, maybe there was an ancient civilization. Now, just bear with me here. This is just a theory of mine, and that put this great hidden message into let's just say our religions, because they knew that a dark age was coming of consciousness where we'd all be kind of stupid a little bit, maybe. And then as we started waking up, we would start decoding this stuff and looking into things a little bit deeper. Because even Manly P. Hall says it's truly remarkable how this sacred message that you just talked about, the death, birth, and resurrection, how this message has been told since the beginning of time, and it's never been, no matter how many libraries have been destroyed, books have been burned, this message has still been there, So sometimes I wonder if it's just coming from something larger than us,
Well, I think it is, and I think that's actually the point when you talk about when you talk about how archaic or old numbers are, really, and when you see that numbers actually come from the creation in and of itself, which means they're as old and as archaic as the creation itself, which means that you bring them all the way back to the first moments of creation, which is what? It's the Creator, it's the Great Spirit. And so when you see, and this is what's so powerful about numbers too, you see the same mathematical constants and principles used by, cross-generationally, cross-culturally, across, Mother Earth. You see these same people using squaring the circle. You see the same, the same mathematical constants being used, which means that those truths, those verities are embedded and bound up within creation in and of itself. And it's only man that gets to go and actually, deduce from nature itself and pull all these things out and then understand that they have inherent meanings to them. And so and the sciences are absolutely locked up within numbers and the study of numbers. And this, as you just said, you got I guess that's Thoth, Hermes, Mercurius, whatever, right? All sort of kind of the same character. You have him like saying like, "Oh, I'm speaking to the gods and I'm yelling out numbers."
Right?
That to me says a lot. And so when you talk about something universal, that is numbers. And numbers in geometry. Period. Music can change. You can have different styles of music. You can have different languages. You can have different people. You can have, different evolutions of people with black skin over here and white skin over here and yellow skin over here, whatever. All the differences across the world, there is one thing, once again, pun intended here, one thing that actually links and binds all cultures together, and that is numbers. Now, once again, we go back to like the dumbing down of society, and there are people like, okay, well, why don't people get this more than like and there's lots of mathematicians out there. Why don't they get this? It's because really, in my opinion, we've been taught mathematics in this absolutely cold, dry, lifeless way. And there's so many things, basic things that are completely thrown out by modern mathematicians that really bring light and energy and life to this entire study. And it's freaking fascinating, man, but I think that's really our problem right now is our quote unquote education system.
What about the theory that this thing is a virtual reality? Like, I've talked to Tom Campbell and other people that say, or a physicist, he was a physicist, that say that this could be a virtual reality designed by a higher intelligence, maybe. And people are like, yeah, well, that's a little bit crazy to say that. But, I mean, when you look at the math of biology, if you look at the geometric structures of biology and, everything that's happening in this golden ratio, everything in life, pi is an everything. Maybe it is just a gigantic computer. I mean, can we really just throw that out just because of biology and say that's impossible?
Well, I mean, to me, there is sort of a virtual reality aspect to it, sort of like a hologram illusion, matrix kind of thing. to me, that actually makes a lot of sense. Now, we say it's virtual, but I mean, it is real because it's real to us, But as far as this being sort of some sort of simulation, if you will, in the mind of God, I actually like that analogy quite a bit. Whether it has any, real concrete meaning in the actual existence in and of itself, I don't know. But I like that idea because there is this you're a mystic too, and when when I say mystic, I mean there's the poetry aspect, there's the doing psychology on yourself aspect, there's the symbolic aspect, there's the philosophy aspect, right? There's all these things that come into play, and you really realize that the world is a lot more like a myth. The world is a lot more like a dream than this sort of nuts and bolts kind of mechanistic way that the sort of Cartesian scientists see it, right? That it's more of a dream. It's more of a story. It's more of a God taking a brush across a canvas and slapping on some color kind of thing than it is like, as if, it's like nuts and bolts, or it's like put together like a car. It does have a mechanistic aspect to it. There is machinery behind it, but there's also play and poetry and that sort of thing. I think when you get into this study, you also see that quite a bit, and it's undeniable. And synchronicities is a big one. That's sort of like the first Karen on that path that you when you're getting onto the path of the mystic or whatever, you hit that first Karen. That first Karen is usually, synchronicities, weird kind of shit that happens in your life that you're just like, that doesn't make any sense, Yeah,
and so, I had Jeff Harmon on the show a long time ago. I want to get him back on here, but he studies like angelic magic and the Kabbalah a little bit, and he was talking about the hierarchies of angels who have intelligences and numbers, and at some point in I guess at the top layer of the Kabbalah, when things are in creation, that they're actually vibrating a code and permeating reality, almost like a computer program, is what he was saying. They do it so fast that it's like a computer program. It's just weird, because if you look deep into these stories, it's not about this guy saw an angel in the sky. There's more to it than that. It's like there's codes hidden underneath all this stuff.
Yeah, there is. What do I want to say? Like, when you talk about angels and you talk about all of this sort of stuff, like the levels of angels, to me, it isn't to say that this doesn't have some sort of real world.
It could just be a symbol for something that we don't understand,
I really think it is. And it's and those symbols are told in a mythological way, or they're told in the context of being, the mystical, if you will. And so that way it's like you have that core idea, but it's wrapped up in all this sort of drama, if you will. And that really draws people to it, because there's a mystery to it. There's drama to it. There's, all of that sort of stuff. And I think and myths do this to a T. We're just, we're left with, as humans, coming into existence, we're left with all of these artifacts and all these myths and these stories and whatnot, and they're all just weird as shit. You know what I mean? They're all weird, and they all make us think, and they make us, get into our heads and like, what does this mean? And people spend their entire lives poring over things like the Bible or Greek mythology and things like that, just to try to even get one semblance of grasp on what any of this stuff means.
You're explaining my life to a T. I hope you're not going to say those people are stupid.
No. I mean, it's a worthy endeavor. That's what we're doing here, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
But I think behind those myths are the true science.
There's so many correspondences and so many parallels. I mean, if you look at the number 12, we can go, and I want to do that in the second part of the show, where Marty is going to give you some real examples of this. But you released a video. I don't know, was it today when you released that new video on your YouTube channel?
No, that was a couple days ago.
Days ago. Okay. Now this one was talking about the first. In the beginning, Genesis 1:1 and then John 1:1, where they both tell the creation story, right? And it's was fascinating to me that the numbers kept coming up. No matter how that number 190, you kept putting it together. Even if you put the words together in a sentence, it was 190. Or you put it together this way, it was 190. It all kept going back to 190, no matter how much you mixed that together. Now, What does that mean, though? What's the importance of 190, or is it just a coincidence that it's 190? You understand what I'm asking you here?
Yes, and one of the things that we talk about in that lecture is that when you look at John 1:1, you look at Genesis 1:1, it looks like you're given two different creation stories, right? And on the surface, that's really what it looks like, because it's like, okay, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and then in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So here you have these two different creation stories, and yet when you look at them mathematically, they're actually giving you the exact same thing, right? And then you say, okay, well, to a layman or an average person that has done no study in mathematics, and this is that problem that we were just talking about, right? When you try to talk about this stuff, you say, okay, what does 190 mean? Well, if nobody has any relationship or reference point to 190, all of this is just going to be nonsense, right? It goes above most people's head. But then you realize that 190 is, it's adding 1 through 19 equals 190, right? And we can talk about 19, how 19 squared is 361, which is the monad, which is the sun symbol, which is it's a core symbol in the Dogon and the Egyptian and the Greeks and all, et cetera, et cetera. And then we can actually relate it to pi and how the first 10 digits of pi give you the number 190. We can also relate it to the 5 platonic solids with the edges, the faces, the edges, and the vertices all equal 190. And then you say, well, so what? But basically what you're talking about there, when you have a link from Genesis 1:1 giving you this particular mathematics, and then you go to the 5 platonic solids and find that exact same mathematics, well, the concepts of heaven and earth as it's given in Genesis 1:1 are all over. I mean, the idea of the as above and so below, the spirit and the matter, that sort of thing, that polarity, that is in culture after culture after culture, to a point of exhaustion, really, And then you say, okay, well, that's a constant. I can see heaven and earth is a constant. Now I've got a number from there. Then I'm going to go to the five platonic solids. And as far as we know, the 5 platonic solids are thousands of years old. And the reason that they're called platonic, but really what they are is just these base geometric forms that creation has given us, and so what was being encoded within those lines is that what we could talk about before when you get back to the base of all science, and that's the math behind it,
Right. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I do, believe it or not. Your mind is incredible, Marty. You've got 9 or 10 things going on in your mind at once, don't you? All times, at every time of the day. I think this is perfect for you, man, what you're doing.
Yes, that's true. I do have too much shit going on in my head.
Do you ever find, though, and this is the case, like when I was studying Paul Foster Case, who he teaches, the real meaning of the tarot, which was never really designed for a divinatory tool. It was to help you with meditation on the path of initiation, and relates it to Kabbalah and etc. The best teaching on tarot you can get, and the Kabbalah correspondence. But as he started getting into Hebrew gematria, it seems like he almost, in some of his books, started getting away a little bit. Do you ever find that maybe you get away from yourself and you got to go, okay, I got to go back to square one here, because this is getting a little ridiculous? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, where you can almost drive yourself crazy and you're not really going in the direction of truth.
No.
Because you don't, well, I can say that happened when I was reading his book a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think I understand what you're saying there, for sure, because there's many, many times throughout the process of studying and absorbing yourself in, being absorbed by the material and just really putting yourself in, that it can sweep you away, and it can take a hold of you and go down wrong paths and stuff like that, But I think that's when it comes back to, if you can just be honest with yourself and you do enough of that work on yourself to try to get you back in line, I think you'll be okay.
Right. Yeah. What I meant was he started trying to decode everything. I mean, every little thing, to where it turned into, it didn't matter anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, like his beginning teachings and everything were wonderful, up to the point of when he started talking about alchemy. And then I was like, you're going off course here a little bit. But his style and your style are totally different, But I could see myself doing this and just trying to decode every little thing I see, you know, license plates. Well, I look at a sign and I start decoding it, and, you know, eventually I'm going crazy. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm decoding everything in my mind.
Actually, I'm glad you're saying this, because this is a really good point. And this happens with a lot of people too, that I think that haven't done enough homework, that haven't done enough reflection on these ideas and stuff like that. They'll go and try to decode everything. And like you said, license plates and you know, news and stuff like that, whatever. And yeah, okay, there's certain places for that. But we also have been given things in our creation that are very particular, that have their own parameters to them that are antiquated, you know. And what I mean is the tarot deck, right? There's 22 cards in the lesser or the major arcana, 56 in the lesser, right? Or the minor arcana, whatever it's called, right? 78 cards total. You're given particular cards, you're given particular names, you're given, you know, there's a parameters to that thing. Chess is the same way. Billiards is the same way. The Holy Bible is absolutely that way, right? I mean, you're given particular characters, and they fall in very particular chapters, and they're given specific numbers along the way. You know, so there are things that are given to us that I think have been encoded for very particular reasons to pass on this sort of esoteric body of knowledge, you know. And then there's all the fluff, if you will, and I see a lot of gematricians, quote unquote, on the web that do this stuff, and that is try to decode everything. And I think those people are going to end up getting lost, because, you know, is the whole point to, you know, is it the whole point to decode reality? And I'll even say this, man, is the whole point to decode reality and figure out numbers is everything? Well, no. Isn't the whole point of reality to me to figure out, well, what's the meaning of life?
That's right.
What are you doing
why
here?
Are we here?
Why are we here? That's the damn question that's on. It should be on everybody's mind anyway. So for me, there was, when I went into that question, like what am I doing here? I had to go to numbers. I had no choice, really, because it was the only thing that I could really rely on to give me truth. You know, you're surrounded in this world by liars and deceivers and fools and idiots and people that want to tell you how it is all the time. And that's politically and ideologically and all of that stuff, right? And for me, I was like, I couldn't listen to people anymore. So because I was constantly told stuff that was incorrect, right? And so numbers was that thing for me. And it still is to this day, you know? So that's why you know what I'm saying? They were like, you know, when you look at the qualities of the number 365, right? You know, it's only going to have the divisors 1, 5, 37, and 365. That's it. There's no other divisors. There's no, you know, it's like it has particular properties and there's reasons you see a number like that in creation. So you get onto those constants, and those become sort of like the pillars for you when you make your journey through numbers. And there's not a lot of people that I would say focus on those sorts of things. They focus on the garbage, you know?
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Yeah. And we're going into our first break. Actually, it's actually the last break, because we don't do every 30 minutes. But we're talking about numbers. And we're talking about gematria, the universal language of life. The only thing, if we all speak different languages, but we all understand numbers, don't we? We'll be right back with Marty Leeds. You guys don't go anywhere.
Napa Valley, California, Little Rock, Arkansas.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to The Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Come own the night with us. Hi there, this is Dave Scott, host of Spaced Out Radio. Every Monday through Friday, right here on KTLK, The Fringe FM, I'm going to lead you down a path of mystery, intrigue, and suspense. So whether you've seen a UFO, had a run-in with Bigfoot or Dogman, or had ghosts running around your house, this is the place to be. Spaced Out Radio, right here on KTLK.
Paranormal. Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal.
The U.S. military holds the ability to time travel.
Jeremy Scott asks the questions that we're all dying to know.
Wow, that's a remarkable question.
Watch your step. Hide under your blankets.
The show that is going to make you think.
Prepare yourself for what you're about to hear.
This transmission is coming to you.
You're riding into the Parabnormal.
Live Saturday nights at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern on KTLK, The Fringe.
Hey folks, CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
We are still getting strange on Sundays. Hey everyone, it's me, Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange Radio, letting you know we're on live Sunday nights right here on The Fringe FM. The Strange Sunday saga continues live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Listen on thefringe.fm or at beyondthestrange.com. Again, that's Sunday nights, 5 p.m. Pacific. See you there.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners, guess what? TalkStream Live has just released a new paranormal app exclusively for the paranormal community called Paranormal Radio. Paranormal Radio has a great selection of streaming talk shows dealing with UFOs, the supernatural, sacred geometry, NDEs, and much more, including a network highly recommended, The Fringe FM. You can download Paranormal Radio right now from Google Play and the iTunes App Store.
This is Lighting the Void Radio with your host, Joseph Roop. It's the show about truth-seeking and freeing the spirit, shattering your limited beliefs, revealing hidden truths.
Hey, it is I, Kurt Green from the Kurt Green Hour. Come hang out with me every Wednesday night at midnight, Pacific Standard Time. As we unwind, hey, grab a cup of coffee, hang out with me, enjoy the ride. That's midnight every Wednesday night right here on the Fringe.fm. To call the show, pick up the phone and dial 501-777-5631. That's 501-777-5631.
During the break, I almost missed the break intro talking to Marty during the break because I'm yapping. I think I might have put a little bit more stuff in my coffee than I need. This is Joe Roop. We're back. This is Lighting the Void. If you're just tuning in, we're here with Marty Leeds, who specializes in decoding stuff with gematria, numerology, all that cool stuff, man. You check him out at martyleeds33.com. Now, Marty, here's something that we hear a lot about. That you hear quite a bit, actually, when you start studying the esoteric, is in the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was God. Now, I don't know if you grew up and went to church, but I grew up in a little Baptist church, and, they would hold up the Bible and put it in front of my face and say, this is the Word of God. Every letter in here is the Word of God. And you ask questions as you get older. Well, wasn't that written by men? And, we've went down this road several times, but I don't exactly think that the word is what we think it is. In that book, it kind of makes it seem like the word is alive. When you hear people say, Marty, that the word is God, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, this is what we did the last lecture on, and basically looking at when we step away from the literalism of the Bible and read it like it's not some damn historical textbook or something like that, and realize that this is heady, symbolic stuff, and that when they say the word, that what they're trying to do is, with two words, the word, if you will, is really encase and sort of embody like all of these principles that are behind that, meaning just what we talked about, what you're doing here. And I know that sounds crazy, like, how does the meaning of life wrapped up in a word, if you will, but mathematical constants, things like, some of the things we covered with 33 bones in your spinal column, the 270 days of human gestation, the fact that the word actually has mathematical parallels, one of them being pi, and when we decode this stuff and we do it in the lecture series, I'm not just like pulling stuff out of my hat. This isn't some magic trick. We're going to the Bible and we're going letter to letter and looking at this and saying, and picking apart verse after verse after verse to say, okay, whoever wrote this put this stuff in there because there's something much more magical going on with the Holy Bible, much more in depth than how your average person that goes to church reads the book. So when we talk about the Word of God is this idea that when God spoke into creation, when He said that word or in that idea, that ideation, in that is basically all the principles that govern the natural world, if you will. That sounds like an overwrought explanation of it, but when you actually go in and start picking it apart, it's absolutely incredible. The first time that I ever did that whole thing with John 1:1 and all of that, it was just absolutely damn remarkable. That's like, when you realize that, like, Jesus, you're decoding something that somebody put in there with an insane amount of intention 400 years ago. And then that, when they were translating it and putting all this stuff into the English text, that they were translating something that was, 1,500 years old or even older than that, So it's pretty nuts stuff.
Yeah, indeed it is. And, when I found out that the word was translated into Greek and it came out to logos. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a whole different meaning. It's not just letters. That's symbols. That's symbology. That's maybe communication. Maybe it goes deeper than that.
Yeah, when you pick it apart and you think about just like saying, okay, well, God spoke a word. Well, what is a word to you? Okay, a word has a sound. So therefore it has vibration and frequency. You just spoke, even just like I'm speaking now, I said the word, right? And then that word also has letters, and that those letters form the word in and of itself. So now you have sound, you have symbol, you have vibration, you have frequency. And then we go even further and say, okay, well, the word that they're putting into, like literally into letters on the page of the Holy Bible here, that has numbers to it, and those numbers have a meaning to it. And like I said before, very, very specific meanings, not just, throwing together whatever meaning you'd like the number to have. No. That's not what we're doing here, So, that's really when you talk about, and there's a bunch of other cultures that talked about in the beginning, God spoke creation into creation, meaning that like the Mayan Chilam Balam says something like, the word of the one unloosed itself like from stone-like silence and shuttered all of eternity. And it's this idea that God spoke into creation, and the Hindus have the same thing. It's the AUM, right? It's that
right, yeah.
that thing. It's like, okay, so God spoke a word that has letters to it, and it's a vibration that literally vibrates all of creation into manifestation, which is, these are very, very profound ideas that basically get washed over when you go to church and somebody says, no, it's just the book, read the book. How many people are reading the Bible and don't even have a damn clue what they're reading most of the time? I would say that's a majority of the people.
Yeah, and it seems like the more that we talk about this, the message is becoming like we're beating a dead horse. Like you heard that phrase, beating a dead horse, yeah. Right? Like it's not doing anything. But look, there's mathematical stuff in here, and I'm going to ask you about the number 12 here in just a second. But I'm going to look at this verse here in Revelations that when he was bringing the city down, right? Now, he's given you a formula here. We don't really know. There's a lot of people say they know who wrote Revelations, but we don't. Do we really know who wrote Revelations, right? And he says that the wall was great and high. It had 12 gates, and the gates had 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. On the east were 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, the south 3 gates, and the west 3 gates. And the wall and city had 12 foundations, and in them the names were the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And then he measures it with a reed, because I'm shortening this up a little bit. The city lieth foursquare, and the length is large as the breadth, and the length is large as the breadth, and the height of it. So that's volume right there. Well, anyways. What I'm saying is when I got down to this, I've talked to Richard Allen Miller about this. I talked to Tom Campbell, a physicist, about this, and he talks about the gates or the measure of a man that's the measure of an angel. Well, when I drew this out, it came to a pentagon, right? And the 12-sided pentagon, 3-dimensional shape, is a dodecahedron. Now, that's one of the now you may not get that out of that, but now we're talking about geometrical figures that are hidden in the Bible. And no one talks about this. I've seen maybe a couple of YouTube videos on it, and they draw out this like square thing, and it doesn't make any sense at all. Do you think that our soul, or what people call the aura, or our energetic field, I don't know if you've ever heard about that, has anything to do with what they're talking about in here? I know this is a long shot question, but I want to ask you from a mathematical point of view, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's all got to do with you. Number one, I think that's the thing that a lot of people forget about. It's like, you're looking at a Bible, you're picking this thing up, you're reading it. It's like, okay, well, what is your relationship to that book? What is your relationship to the story? And so if this book is trying to tell you about God, ultimately the question you're going to have ask at some point about reading the book is, what is my relationship to God through this? So, to answer your question is like, okay, does your spirit or your aura or whatever have, is this what they're kind of talking about? Well, one of the lectures I did was called The Predominance and Occultation of the Septenary Cipher. And you can get on my podcast too as well. And we talk about the menorah. And that menorah is literally like, when you break it down into English, just the phonetics of English, if you will. It's menorah, as in man and aura, right? Mm-hmm. And your aura is A-U-R-A. It's your energy field that surrounds a human being. Now, we know that we have this, right? This is not woo-woo science stuff. This isn't, this is, you're an electromagnetic vehicle, and you have a vibration around you. You have that sort of, aura around you. So when you look at the menorah, it's a 7-branch menorah. You've got 3 on one side, 3 on the other side, and there's a pillar right in the middle, right? Well, in one of the symbolic aspects of what that is mentioning there, the 7 lights is the 7, your chakra system, of course, right? 7 points of your chakra system that has been known for literally thousands of years. We pretty much understand at this point. So you talk about man aura, you got a 7-branch menorah. You're talking about man, you're talking about aura, and then you're talking about the lights of the candle. That's 7.
What about the 7 ancient astrological planets that correspond, that they talk about correspond to 7? I mean, we can talk about 7 all day long, right? This correspond to the 7 notes on the scale, the 7 colors of the rainbow, the 7 systems in the human body. I think Manly P. Hall goes into that quite a bit. It is definitely, the more you look at it, it looks like a very large program. And there was a comment in the Spreaker chat room about, isn't the matrix code 1s and 0s? Well, maybe ones and zeros is like all we understand. Maybe it's a bigger and higher code. Maybe it's that cipher that you're the 7. You know, maybe that's the universal one. Who knows? It's very interesting stuff, though.
I mean, when the person that's commenting actually made a good point when you look at, the internet's created with a binary system, 0 and 1, which means the entire complexity, all the images and video and everything that's happening right now, that is all brought to you by 2 numbers. Oh, actually 1 number. It's a non-number and a number, and that's 0 and 1, which is basically just on off or letting information in, keeping it out, right? So these 2 basic functions, right? On-off function is what creates the entire internet. Now, if we can create what you could say almost like a microcosm of a macrocosm, or a reflection of creation onto computer screens using these 2 numbers itself, you would think that if we're smart enough to do that, using such simplicity to grow such complexity, you would assume that the most intelligent being of all would use such simple things to actually create creation as well. And that's actually what we see. 0 and 1 is essentially, when you look at the principles or essences of those numbers, the qualities of those numbers, if you will, 0 is nothing and 1 is everything. So literally what you have is an interplay between nothing and everything. And that's what the creation is. I mean, this really goes down to we talk about Genesis 1:1, heaven and earth, right? Heaven is spirit, earth is matter. You basically have this idea of something, the tangible, the measurable, that which you can touch, that sort of thing. 1, and then that which you can't, which is nothing. And so, and I mean, you look at the people that built at this point, I feel like all of these government organizations, anybody that's in any sort of position of power, if you will, are essentially have become dark occultists, if you will. That's a nice way of saying it, I guess. When you look at the people that have built the internet, I mean, this is DARPA. To me, this is an occult organization, and these are occultists that have built the internet. And so they are intelligent. They're extremely intelligent. I think they are keepers of the esoteric sciences. They're also keeping it from mankind.
Well, look at the Pentagon. Do you think they made the military force the shape of Pentagon, exactly, which is also the fifth sphere of, that represents Mars, which is the god of war? You think they're not using that as a power symbol or a protection symbol? Of course they are, Yeah, and especially when you look at the architectural themes, especially like streetways and causeways, and Washington D.C. is a big example. You see that some of these core or key concepts within what we call esotericism or theology, really, they're used for street structures or how they build buildings and architectural themes and all this other stuff, which means that, this isn't just the hidden hand of God that's at work here. You obviously have people who know exactly what they're doing, Yeah, so, and I remember when I was on Ryan's show, and
I just want to say one thing really quick. When I was saying about DARPA, when you talk about these people that are creating the internet, I think that they were intelligent enough to know that what they were really doing when they were creating the entire internet with 0 and 1 is that they were taking the esoteric sciences and using it for their own gain, if you will.
That could be true. That could very well be true. Yeah, I never thought about that, actually. Interesting. Well, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. When I was on Ryan's show, at the end, I called into that show because, my God, and no pun intended, right, because we're talking about that, but Marty Leeds and Ryan Gable were on the same show. This was, fascinating to me, so I had to call in. And when I called in, I was pushing a movement for people to wake up and understand this and use this stuff in their own life. And you said, yeah, but what I would say is tread lightly because this stuff is real. These powers and forces and numbers are real. And I really am glad you said that. I took that to heart. And because sometimes I get a little bit liberal in what I say about these teachings. And they could be quite dangerous put in the wrong hands,
There's a lot of things to say there. Number one, they're tools, and they're very powerful tools, just like a chainsaw. You wouldn't just pick it up willy-nilly and start waving it around, kind of thing, right? And so I kind of look at it like that. I also think that when you read a lot of the like key esoteric authors, I can think of a few offhand that have said this explicitly, that if you're through your own toils and efforts and work and stuff like that, or if you had help from somebody else, if you got to this level of unveiling, if you will, universal unveiling, if you will, that you're not, basically if you get to the top of the key, the esoteric sciences, if you will, that you're not supposed to say anything, right? You're basically just supposed to keep it for yourself. Why? Because you earned it, you did the work, and it's not for everybody else that hasn't done that work, hasn't self-initiated and gone through that process of doing the purification of the self. And so therefore they do not get the rewards. And to me, there is some truth to that, because just look out on the damn internet, man. There are a lot of people. We talked about this before we started this show. People that are entitled and they don't value these things. Well, should we just hand this shit to them on a silver platter? No,
that's
right. You have
exactly
to,
right.
You have to work for it. At the same time, though, that we are in such dire straits right now. Not the band. Great band, but we're in such dire straits right now. We're in a desperate place. And the people I feel that are in charge are using this sort of knowledge system against humanity, and we don't have a choice at this point. That's how I feel. And I've actually talked to who was I talking to? Dave Matheson, actually, when I did my podcast with him. He said the same thing, that when you do all of this work for yourself, not for yourself, but you do it because you want to go through that process of purification and the transformation of the soul. You're not just supposed to give it out willy-nilly. I don't think we have a choice anymore. I think that we're in the very, very unique time, having the internet as well, that we can actually learn this stuff, compile the information, do our best to bring it out to people and share it. And I think that we should.
Well, just like on Saturday, I was hosting Spaced Out Saturday and was speaking to Leo Zagami, he's a conservative, and he was very concerned because he grew up in Masonry and the mystery schools, that there was a great liberal movement going through these societies and I could really see his point. For instance, if you get on YouTube, you can see the workings of Crowley opening all these portals and stuff for people. And there is a live ritual that I believe, what's his name? The guy that was in Pineapple Express, Falco, was there, where they were invoking or evoking Bartzabul, which is the demon, or a demon ruler of Mars, and a public ritual. People were taking pictures, and it was like this big art event, and it was almost, you could hear people laughing in the background yet.
And the uninitiated, they laugh it off. And in fact, I'm actually having not an issue with somebody right now, but I'm kind of dealing with that with somebody right now, where I'm, kind of telling them like, hey, this stuff is not a joke. And they kind of just laughing off like Satanism and stuff, as if it's not, oh no, that's not what you think it is. No, it's not what you think it is.
James Franco, that's his name. Yeah.
James Franco. Yeah.
Yeah, and they think it's this great, and I'm sure to them it's an enlightening and wonderful and a new, beautiful, cool, and exciting thing. But sometimes I don't think they understand what they're playing with, And I understand what you're saying there. With the reason why they kept their mouth shut is because a lot of people have this victim mentality where they want more personal power in their life. And if you say, hey, I've got the keys right here, here's the Goetia, go read it, and you can summon demons to do your bidding. Do you not think people are going to run off and do that? Of course they are. And that was the reason why like people like Leo and David Griffin and other people on a more conservative side of the mystery schools are very concerned. And you got other people doing binding rituals on Trump and anybody that votes for Trump, but yet they're saying, do what thou wilt. Well, aren't you messing with people's will when you're doing that? You see? And these teachings were meant for you to, because, let's face it, demons, they're real in the fact that on the psychic level that I believe that they're forces under the great unconscious that are in all of us that we all have to deal with. But that doesn't mean because someone published the secrets on how to evoke them that you should start messing around with your psyche, because if you're not ready for that, you could really get some bad stuff going on you there,
I think you just nailed it right there. As far people say, it's like, oh, do you believe in demons? I would be like, well, yes and no. I've never seen a personal physical demon, but have I had, depressed, thoughts, demonic thoughts, if you will, that would try to steer me off course and make me do stupid shit and all of that? Absolutely. And everybody has, and how powerful those thoughts are. If you've ever done any sort of, psychological analysis of yourself or any, trying to do any sort of, fixing of your brain, if you will, you know how difficult that can be. And we all struggle with it. It's not like it's like, oh, I'm over that. No, I still got a brain that's knocking around shit up there, So those are very real things. And anybody that's been, you could say, possessed, possessed with anything, possessed with weight loss, possessed with possessed with possession, owning a bunch of shit, possessed with being on top. It completely skews their entire worldview, And so I totally agree with you there. It's like whether there's any sort of like demons in reality or not, there are those things in your psyche. That's for sure.
Yeah, and they're, they very well could be playing with forces that they don't understand. All they know is that this guy named Barcible is a demon that, comes from Mars, and I can get him to do my bidding if I say the right God names and protection and do the right movements and all of that stuff. But they don't understand the whole process of that ritual is tapping. The reason why you do ritual is because of the influence of what it does to the subconscious. And the subconscious is the doorway into the great unconscious, which is the astral realms of everybody's mind that's put together behind this software of reality. So you may be, let's just say Barcible or whatever, it may be like one of the biggest malware viruses you may be putting on yourself and all those people in that audience just because that material was released. But the teachings teach you, just like when they go into Blue Lodge Masonry, that whole Blue Lodge process is actually the reason why they put such I want to say an importance on morality, right? That whole Blue Lodge Masonry thing is about morality and understanding the esoteric teachings is so that you can perfect yourself. So if you do make it into these higher systems and stuff and you start working with any of this stuff, which you don't have to, you really don't have to, but if you do, you're coming from a place of greater understanding than some kids at a place where they're putting on something like in an art museum and then they do a rave party afterwards and they don't know what they're messing with. You know what I mean? It's getting a little crazy. And I think that's what Leo's whole point was, back in the day, and we talked about this on Ryan's show, I believe, when you went through the mystery schools with Plato and the ancient mystery schools, you may go your whole life and never get out of that entered apprentice or Blue Lodge type system because you just weren't ready for it, Now we're all ready for it. Do what thou wilt, and just go to town on this stuff. And whatever happens, happens. That's on me. Well, is that really, if these people knew that this stuff was real, would they still do it? I think they would. And that's what scares me,
that the question of morality and ethics and dignity and all that stuff that comes with, where we're talking about Blue Lodge and all that sort of thing, that to me is the sort of the key to science in a way. And it sounds so weird that a human emotion or a human mentality or whatever you want to call is somehow tied up with sciences. But when you get into the holy sciences, that's sort of the thing that you need to really understand. That's why Jesus has the Sacred Heart of Jesus, It's like all of the elements is like that one thing. It's like I've got this one image that I put together and it's, 24 different pictures of Jesus, and it's literally the same picture. It's different paintings in different times by different people, but it's all the same thing, and it shows Jesus and he's holding up his heart, and it's just like light is just beaming and emanating out of his heart. Well, that's a crazy message that's trying to be purveyed to you, and that is the message is the importance of one's heart, the importance of one's morality and ethics when they go into this stuff. If you think that you're going to go knock on the door of the holies and holy of holies, and God's going to open up the door and is like, oh yeah, you were a shitbag on the internet and you were a total dick in your life, but you learned all the esoteric stuff, so come on in. I don't think so. I don't think it works that way. Yeah, and I don't think do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like especially when you get caught up into the intellectualism of this. Sort of people say, well, I know more about the esoteric than you do, or I know more about this than you do. Oh, man, I can't stand that. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, that comes from a place of ego. That obviously doesn't come from a place of your heart. So when you get to the end of this whole thing, when we get back to that question of why you were here, and you think it's okay to just go ahead and, be a jackwagon to people, I think you've totally missed the point of getting into this stuff, so...
If anybody doesn't, well, yeah, it does. And if anybody doesn't understand my message on that, you can look into the story of Aleister Crowley and Victor Neuberg when they went out to the desert and tried to open up a portal and were playing with circles the wrong way, and read that story. And then tell me if you want to go around doing this stuff for the right. I mean, even the greatest magicians of the world probably would never, evoke a demon unless they absolutely had to, unless it was a dire situation. And even then they do it. They tread very lightly. I talked to Lon Milo Duquette about that. He told me his story when he did it, and he'll give you the honest truth about it. You can go in there and do that stuff, but you're going to go limping away from it, And it is a fascinating subject, but I think people need to be more careful. And my whole point of this conversation we're having now was when you told me that, it really opened my eyes to when I first started down this road. I was told the same thing. So I appreciate you telling me that, because I'm not trying to lead a magical movement on this radio show to where people can go do whatever they want to do. That's not it at all. And I want to make sure everybody really understands that,
And I think ultimately that what those ancient, at least this is what I got from them. I'll say this because I can only give you my personal experience, of course. But when you go into like what would be considered the ancient mystery schools, and that is just initiate yourself into the study. You don't have to go to some damn lodge or anything. I didn't. I'm not a Mason or anything like that. But the whole point of that canon of information being passed on by these secret mystery, teachings and books and all of this stuff is that there is that connection to God. And that there's something extremely important, extremely hallowed and divine about the human experience, and that the whole point of going into that study is to help you recognize how truly special the human experience is. How truly special that it is that you're here, despite whatever circumstances you're under. And, and really to get back to the point of like understanding that principle of God, the light, that emanation from the original source is within you. That's until that spark, whatever that animates the human being, that's within you. That's angelic. So I just pulled this up. You were just reading from, what is this? Revelation 21:17,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. And it gives you a bunch of numbers that no one ever talks about. They talk about Revelation all day long, but they won't talk about how any of this stuff means, right?
He's telling you what the gates look like. He's giving you, everything right there. Yeah. You can draw it out.
And listen to this. He says, this is just the one verse that you were reciting. It says, and he measured the wall thereof, 144 cubits, which is 144. It's a Fibonacci number. It's 12 squared, yada, yada, yada. And then it says, listen to this. This is pretty important. According to the measure of a man, that is, of the angel.
Yeah.
So it's like, he's like, okay, we're going to measure the wall. It's 144 cubits. And we're all these measurements are going to be done to the measurements and designs of the temple of man. That is, oh, by the way, an angel.
Yeah.
It's like, what church are you going to go to across the great plains of the states or whatever and hear any of these preachers say anything like that? And yet it's in the Bible.
And the funny thing about that is, though, is the man. When someone says the man, I either draw a cross or I'll draw, a star, because both of those represent man. And then when he says an angel, if you put the wings of an angel on it, it's clear. Then you're looking at the Da Vinci, the Petruvian man, right? And then you draw the angles of that, and it's a pentagon, right? And then you got 12 sides, which comes to, a dodecahedron. I think I've done this like 4 times. And I was going to ask you about that. I will get to your question in the chat room. By the way, you can call in if you have any questions at 501-777-5631 if you want to talk to Marty. But there is the number 12. Can you talk about that number a little bit? Tell us a little bit some of the things that you've discovered about it.
Okay, let's go. So we just talked about, or Revelation was talking about how it's, that we're making this wall thereof, and it's according to the measure of a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk about the measure of man, your body being a human temple, that you are just like those Gothic cathedrals. They were lesson plans in stone, right? Well, you are a lesson plan in flesh is really what you are. And so when you talk about the number 12, I mean, I think we can immediately see it's like, oh, okay, I can look at my fingers and I can see that I have 4 fingers on each hand, 1 thumb, 4 fingers. You know, the thumb's separated from the other 4 fingers, and I've got 3 phalanges on each one of those fingers. Oh, that's 12. So I look at both hands here and I got 12 and 12. So, 12 seems to be a pretty important number. Okay, whatever. Now you go out in creation and you see all the places that the number 12 has been utilized, even in the esoteric, which you could call the esoteric sciences or arts or practices, everything from astrology to blah, blah, blah. And then you can just go to like regular things. You'll see, it's like you climb a flight of stairs and it's 12 stairs and the 13th is the landing, right? You get 12 cell salts in your blood and the blood being the 13th. You got 12 cranial nerves in your brain and the brain being the 13th, right? You've got, the template of the zodiac is 12 around 1, 12 ages of the zodiac around a central hub. Why would they use 12? What's the point of using 12? Well, draw a circle and just use basic common sense. Just draw a circle, and how you can easily segment that circle into 12 parts without even thinking about it, right? There's just something intuitive about the number 12.
Right.
Now, when we look at the number, so this is you could say 12 to somebody, most people just, that's 12. It's quantity, right? I got a dozen eggs, whatever. And you go to the divisors of the number 12, and those divisors are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12, right? Well, if you add those divisors up, that equals 28. And 28 is the phalanges of your 2 hands. So you got 2 on your thumb, 3 on each finger, 14 on your left hand, 14 on your right hand, coming together to be 28. So now you have, just by looking at the qualities, essences, and properties and divisors, if you will, of a number, you can extract all of this other information out and see, hey, that same 12 that was on my fingers is pointing to another number that's on my hands, and that's 28. And so when we talk about design elements, you talk about signatures of design in creation. The number 12 is pointing to those, those keys that are literally right on your hands,
Yeah, and that, when you were saying that, I was reading a Hebrew text one time, and they had a picture of your hands, and they put each one of the letters inside your am I saying that right? Phalanges or whatever?
Yep.
Right. And so it just goes, the rabbit hole goes so deep when you get into this. But that number 12, is fascinating to me. You got 12 tribes of Israel, then you got 12 signs of the zodiac, and they have the 4 elements in there, and then, that stuff's in everything. And then the 12 disciples with the 13th master, that goes all the way back to Horus teachings. Horus was a teaching way before Jesus, who also had 12 disciples, who also was baptized and also raised the dead by, raised Asar, which means Lazarus. The same story, right? So we have this 13th master with 12 disciples story going back all the way to the beginning of time. And then when we look in math, we get 12 times 12, which is 144, which is the Fibonacci. You're talking about the Fibonacci sequence, right? Mm-hmm. Which is in everything, If you look at it from a 3-dimensional point of view, the galaxies are in a Fibonacci sequence. When trees unwind, they're in a Fibonacci sequence. When a wave curls, it's in that sequence. I can go on and on. The human ear, the seashell, your dominant fingerprint on your index finger. It's all designed. And when someone sees that, how can they ever go back to their original dogmas, I wonder? When you say, this is what baffles me, when I point to this and say, just look at this, right? And they look at it and they refuse to accept it. Well, I don't know about all that. I got faith. That's all I know. Well, we're not supposed to understand this stuff. Okay. Well, if we're not supposed to understand it, why did he make it so obvious? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And honestly, I think a lot of it, obvious is a good word, because I think a lot of this stuff is obvious. I think the only reason that it is not obvious to us is that we've spent so much, all these years essentially being dumbed down and programmed and indoctrinated. And so we've taught this whole mess of nonsense that we base all of our opinions and ideologies and theologies on. And it's only later in life when we realize that it's all a bunch of horse apples, and we look back and we try to, pick up the pieces and figure out what's gone wrong over the years. I think a lot of this stuff is super. It is. I mean, I always say this: if I can understand it, anybody can understand it, because, I'll say I'm not that smart of a guy. Most of this stuff is very, very basic. We talk about,
well, Marty, come on, man. You look, my cousin made the same kind of grades you did, right? And when he grew up and went into the military, I found out that he was a genius. He read books by Aristotle and told me the explanations of what he was saying I couldn't even understand. Maybe it's just that you learned a different way. Maybe you use one side of your brain more than the other. I wouldn't say you're not an intelligent man, because you are.
Well, I mean, if I am intelligent in any sort of way, it's only because I've learned these things that would be considered, I would say, of the holy sciences, meaning that they're from God, the great intelligence, right? Sure. So and I understand those things because I had to, because nothing else was making sense to me, kind of thing, So when you talk about, like the pentagram, the perfect pentagram encodes phi, which is what you were talking about, the golden mean, the golden spiral, the golden proportion that's found in everything, eddies, rivers, bees, dogs, everything, right? And so when you see that and you see how elegant and simple that is, right? Jesus, I mean, look, you got a perfect pentagram. All you have to do is do simple geometry. It's giving you one of these design signatures that are found all throughout creation. And then you say, well, where do I find the number 5? Oh, I don't know. Just look at your hand, right? So it's like you see those absolutely elegant and simple things that have been given to us literally right in front of you for you to go into creation and help you understand it. And I think there's been many, many, many cultures throughout time that didn't have the perversions of the education system and didn't have these things that have been placed upon us that divert our attentions, that when you just go with naked eyes, if you just go with a fresh mind, I think you can easily grasp. And the problem is unlearning all the stuff that we've learned. We talk about 12, right? You add 1 through 12, it equals 78. Well, before we even talked about 12, we talked about the tarot deck, right? Tarot deck, the major arcana has 22 cards. The lesser arcana is 56. That's 78. So the tarot deck is telling you about 12 as well. And all you had to do is basic arithmetic. So
that's fascinating stuff, man. It really is. I guarantee you after the show tonight, I'm going to be cracking out on this stuff. Now, if you go to Marty Leeds' website, your website is really cool. You put a gematria calculator right on the front page so people can go in there and do the stuff for themselves. And I think that's really cool, man. I don't think people appreciate that enough, because if you start really getting into this stuff, you can always go to his website and start playing around with these numbers. Now, there's a question in the chat room I meant to get to, and I was wondering if you know anything about it or if you've looked into it, and it's a good question. The DNA sequence, have you mapped any of this stuff or looked into that at all when it comes to the study of this?
Yes, a little bit, but I like, especially at this point in my own studies, I like to be, once again, a pun intended, I guess, but hands-on with these things. So if I go to look at something, I want to wrap myself around a 360. I want to know exactly what I'm talking about. Meaning, if I was going to go and look at and try to decode deoxyribonucleic acid or whatever it's called, right? Guanine, adenine, tryptophan, and what is the other one? Cytosine, right? I would want a spectrometer, and I'd want to see that shit. I'd want to actually do that stuff myself. I just talked about this with astrology as well. It's like I can talk about astrology, I can talk about the templates, I can talk about the signs and the houses, and I can talk about the symbols, and we can talk about the story that's behind the zodiac. We can talk about the 16-degree belt and how it's related to pi. We can talk about all of that. But when it comes to actually mapping the stars and saying this is where the star is going to be rising tonight, I don't know that. So when it comes to those subjects, I want to make sure that I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I want hands-on stuff. So DNA, 64 codons. I mean, 64 is just, it's another one of these numbers that we could talk about for a very long time, and all the places that we find the number 64. If, it's just, it would be like saying to somebody that doesn't know numbers, like, hey, where do you find the word the? You could go everywhere and find it. It's kind of, but you know what the means, right? You know how to use it and grammatically and all that stuff, right? Most people just don't know numbers. So when you look at, hey, 64, if DNA is correct of everything we learned, 64 codons, well, I mean, this is the substructure that makes life, right? So obviously it's been encoded mathematically with those divine principles. 64, I mean, geez. there's so many things we can talk about. I mean, the chessboard encodes the number 64. 64 is just 8 squared, which will lead you to squaring the circle. 64 is you can actually find this in the flower of life when you take it out into 3 dimensions. We can talk about vortex-based math in the number 64. I mean, there's just so much you could talk. I mean, that's an hour conversation right there.
Marty, you just got you're really amazing me here, man. You just got through saying before you said any of this that you don't really want to get into it if you don't know what you're talking about and the intricacies of it and everything. And yet, I think you just broke the internet with what you just said. And I'm sure if I fact check that stuff, it's probably real. You know, you definitely, I appreciate you being humble, but you should give yourself a little bit more credit, man. You're doing great work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But, you know, and the work, that's what it is. When you talk about any of this stuff, you talk about the great work. You know, you're glad you said that, because that's what it is. If you think that you're going to get this stuff by sitting on your ass and playing video games all the time and not reading books and not doing, you know, philosophizing and not going deep within yourself and spending time ruminating and pondering on the nature of creation, if you do not do that stuff, do not think that you're going to get this. It is work, period. You know, but at this point, it's fun. I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, when I get locked, I'm sure you do as well, right? When you get locked into something and you're really, you know, something's got your, you know,
I mean,
you know, picking at you,
right?
You'll just be, next thing you know, you'll be gone for 3 hours, right?
Or
you'll
days
be like,
sometimes.
Yes, exactly, right. You know what I'm talking about. So, you know, it's work, but you know, the rewards, you know.
Well, I'm locked into this. You know, I'm fascinated with the astral realm and things of that nature, and the whole lunar body and solar body stuff, the old alchemical teachings. I'm fascinated with that stuff, and was one of the reasons why I asked you on Ryan's show about the number 9. Now, I've looked into the Bible when he talks about 153 fish, 144, you know, 666, the mark of the beast, which equals 18, which 8 plus 1 equals 9, and I don't even know if I'm doing my gematria right, but I think I am. And number 9 is all in there, and it's, you know, on the tree of life, it represents Yesod, which is the lunar sphere, which basically is our dream sphere, or the consciousness that we're trapped into. And, you know, these ancients, they talk about waking up in the lunar body. You know, when you're in that dream world, you actually, they even talk about projecting that body at death so they don't lose their consciousness, which they believe is the second death, when you just lose your consciousness. Even if you reincarnate, you don't remember yourself, right? But Jesus did as a child. Fascinating stuff, you know. But I also looked on YouTube where a man was using the number 9 and pretty much based the number 9 and 12 on everything in reality, like really broke down the numbers. Is there anything about that number 9 that you found out about as well?
Well, okay, so let's do this. So Jesus on the cross was has the letters INRI, right. And in Hebrew this equals 270. And this is a key number because it's a key number in human gestation. It's roughly the 9 months that you spent in your mother's womb. Now, 2 plus 7 plus 0, 270. When you break it down numerologically or reduce it, is what? 9, it's 9, yeah. Right? Okay, so 270. That's the numbers above Jesus Christ. When you break it down into gematria in Hebrew, it's 270. It's the number of days in gestation. That's 9 months. Well, that's 3/4 of a circle, right? 270 degrees is 3/4 of 360. Okay, so now you go to the gematria value of the word 9, N-I-N-E, and using the septenary cipher, or sevenfold cipher, it's, you know, 9 equals 12. It's 1515. This equals 12. So now you're given 2 numbers within the number 9, and that's 9 and 12, right? Well, 9 over 12, like we said, that would be equivalent to 270, which is the numbers that are above Jesus Christ on the cross. And this is related directly to what? Well, what did Jesus Christ do? Died and was, you know, reborn. So it's talking about the spiritual, you know, rebirth process being reflected in this, you know, the material birth process.
That's so fascinating to me.
And that's in the number 9 in English, you know. So whoever would, particularly put the letters there, we're trying to, relay this information.
That's what amazes me. How could that story be translated from Hebrew into Latin and Greek into English so well and tell the same story and keep the same numbers? It has to be a higher message, man.
Well, this is the other thing, is it doesn't necessarily always keep the same numbers. This is the other thing that trips people up, and it is a point that really needs to be clarified too, is that you're not going to find the same numbers for Jesus or let's say Abraham or whatever.
Yeah,
you're not going to find the same number in Hebrew as you would in Greek, as you would in English. You're just not going to.
What I mean by that is what I'm specifically talking about there is maybe not the English Hebrew translation, but what I'm talking about is the initiation process from the sphere of Earth or Malkuth to in Kabbalah, where it goes through the ninth sphere.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Into the Tiferet sphere. So you go through the lunar sphere, which is the lunar body, and you're trying to progress to the sphere of Tiferet, which is pretty much Christ consciousness, or Zera Ampin, which is the solar sphere. And you just got through talking about 9 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
And that sphere is the sixth sphere. So it's, to me, it's telling that Kabbalistic story. It's like all of these books are books, but the Kabbalah is maybe the catalyst to the code, or that path working process.
Yeah, I think
could be. I'm not saying that's fact, but I'm just that stuff stands out to me.
Mm-hmm. No, I guess I'm a little bit biased and I'm a numbers guy, but I think the true story that's being told within the Bible is ultimately a mathematical story. Now, as we said, most people don't understand math, or they don't understand it in the capacity, and is like, okay, math is, numbers are not, they're not numb. Most people are numb to numbers, and you can go your whole life being numb to numbers, right? But when you actually go and learn them, you realize that they're alive, if you will, right? And that each number has a particular quality and interacts with other numbers in a different way that actually tells a story. And that's one of the things we did with the John 1:1 thing. Just said, hey, man, this is the exact same creation story, told differently in the English language, but told exactly the same mathematically. And so ultimately, the great story that you mentioned it, Thoth. You talk to the gods, and they're like yelling out a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
Talk about the angelic hierarchies, right? I mean, I know the Christian one. I believe there's other ones. I think Greek as well, or the Ennead. The Ennead was celebrated by the Greeks and the Egyptians. That's 9 gods. Christian angelic hierarchy is 9 gods. Ultimately, it's like, okay, what is the key thing that ties those myths together? Numbers. The names of the gods are different time frames, different languages, different people. But what's the one thing that ties them all together? Numbers.
Catalina, dear Catalina in the chat room's got a good point. She says math doesn't suck. There's just bad math teachers that suck sometimes.
Absolutely, Catalina. Math doesn't suck. There's awful math teachers. Absolutely.
Well, yeah. We've got a few minutes left here. I want to, make sure we get your message out. I will say this: if you guys go to his YouTube channel, which is, you can just YouTube Marty Leeds and find it. But it's Marty Leeds. Is it Marty Leeds 33 on YouTube, right?
Yeah, actually, I have 2 sites now. I got the backup site that I do all of the live streams out of now, and this Thursday doing de-occulting the $1 bill, and that's going to be great.
Isn't it amazing? Everybody's having to do backup videos now. That YouTube is censoring everybody that's putting out this information.
Yeah. So it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Everybody's getting it too. So don't feel special if you're getting censored on the internet. You're one of the millions. Marty Leeds Live is the new site, though. Marty Leeds Live and Marty Leeds 33. So Marty Leeds Live as well. I'll be doing all the live streams out of this Thursday, 7:06 Pacific Central Time, de-occulting the $1 bill.
I'm going to tell you guys something right now. Get some coffee out. Do this on a weekend, all right, when you got a lot of time and you want to learn a lot about this, because you could start at the beginning of his YouTube videos and you're going to get hooked on this stuff, and it's just going to amaze you every time you turn around. He's got something else that he's discovering through this, and it's really fascinating, Marty. I think it's great work that you're doing. Where do you go from here, though? What's the next thing that you're working on, or are you just staying the course with the numbers?
Well, I mean, it incorporates all sorts of different things because there's anatomy, you know. We just look at all these different things through the numbers. So it's like it's really sort of never ending. That's kind of one of the reasons we started doing the lecture series, is because we'd be live, we can do a Q&A, and we can just talk about all these things. So as far as like what I'm doing, yeah, I mean, just continuing to explore this stuff, write about it, try to concretize it so when I'm dead and gone, somebody can pick it up, you know?
Sure.
But can I say something really quick? I know we're pretty much out of time,
please.
but what you were saying, we live in, you were just saying, hey, go to my site and start the videos and watch through them and do it on a weekend or whatever. We live in really peculiar times that if you do want to educate yourself, there is, and this, I'm not forced humility here or anything like that, but there's just so many great researchers out there that are doing good stuff that you can, you could spend a weekend and intensely study, Mark Passio or something like that, or whoever it is. And if you pay attention, you sit your ass down, take some notes, listen intently, right? If you do that at the beginning of the weekend, by the end of the weekend, you'll be a different person. If you're honest, if you're honest with yourself and you put yourself through it, and you know what I mean? And like we said, do the work. It's not, you can't just do this casually, but there's so much out there right now that's the beauty of where we live, or when we live. The other problem is there's so much crap.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
You gotta wade through it, and that's the problem. But
that is the section on YouTube when you're on there that pops up on the right that says recommended for you, and I guarantee you, you can get lost in that section. So you might want to stay the course and keep hitting that back button on your browser to go back to the same channel sometimes, because the next thing you know, you're talking about how. The space monkeys are invading Angle 9 on planet Galactia with the lizards, and you were just looking at something
which
about
is a
number
great
12,
video, by the way.
Yeah, that is a great video. But I'm not saying that that's not real as well, because tomorrow night we're going to talk about maybe where this ancient stuff comes from with the Xavier Hayes. So I'm interested in that as well. But Marty, tell everybody one more time how they can find you across the web.
MartyLeeds33.com is the best place, and then Marty Leeds 33 on YouTube, or Marty Leeds Live for the live streams, because my YouTube live streaming privileges have been revoked. So that's why I got to do it on this other channel. So, and I guess that's it. You can find the rest. So.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, man. It's been fun talking to you. I hope we can do it again. I'd love to have you back on and go down this rabbit hole with you a little bit more.
I always appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, that's Marty Leeds. We're wrapping it up here. We got to get out of here, actually, pretty quick. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Ancient Aliens in the Bible. Another cool person's going to be with us. Xavier Hayes will be with us tomorrow night on the show. He was also on Beyond the Strange. If you want to get to know him, you can go check out that show as well with Dave Cruz. And don't forget that this show was produced and broadcasted by me, Joe Roop, and thefringe.fm, and cannot be simulcasted or rebroadcasted without written permission. Music is by Chronox, Kevin MacLeod, and Spaceboy at spaceboymusic.com. We'll see you guys tomorrow night.